I'm here with David Bozin. He is the VP of Growth Development over at Bindo. They're right around the corner from us, actually, in Manhattan, and they are a retail technology provider. How are you doing, David?
Doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for being with us. So can you just explain a little bit about what your company provides as far as point-of-sale security and devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started around 2011, and we really focused on establishing a marketplace. So the initial idea of what we created was, why is it so difficult for us to shop? And that kind of brings us to where we are now, which is an iPad native application that is a point of sale for retail stores, soon to be coming out for QSR and restaurant, and really focusing on everything from inventory management to employees to the actual payment itself.
Mm-hmm. And how does this actually look as opposed to, I know we have like the square devices that is almost as small as a USB, throw it in your pocket. Mm-hmm. What is, what you guys have look like?
Sure. So we actually have multiple devices that we integrate with. We don't build out our own. Square created their own, and they are an awesome company, right? They've opened up the market to everyone saying, oh yeah, now I could use technology to actually accept a credit card. We realized that for a real retail store, anything more than 20 items, anything more than a lemonade stand, you need something more powerful. You need more than just a credit card swipe. You need the entire shebang, right? You need inventory management. You have to be able to manage up to 50,000 SKUs. We have stores with more than that. That's something that a lot of other platforms, especially that function in the cloud, aren't capable of doing.
So can you talk about, you guys have a white paper out now about iPad point of sale security. What were some of the highlights in there, and what's some basic security hygiene you would have to worry about on these mobile devices as opposed to a traditional?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the actual infrastructure, a lot of it happens outside of the device. So there isn't that big of a difference when it comes to the payments platform between the gateway and how it actually gets sent over to the card networks and back. But there are a few things that you have to take into consideration. So if you have a PC, you've probably had a virus, and you understand that if you have a PC point of sale and you use it for things other than the point of sale, which you most likely do, then it's a lot more likely for you to get some sort of malware. Now, this malware may not necessarily touch the payment information in the platform, but either which ways, it could bring the whole system down, right? So want it or not, you're not going to be able to accept a credit card. With our solution, given that it's iPad, given the fact that I've never gotten a virus on my iPad, hopefully let's keep it that way, please, Apple. But aside from that, the likelihood that there's going to be a virus is very, very minimal, and it's very difficult to break into the platform itself. Yeah.
And what about stuff like PCI compliance and the migration to EMV? How is that going to affect the people on the iPad taking card information?
Yep, absolutely. So fact of the matter is that the majority of the platforms out there, point of sale, are not inherently PCI compliant. That's something that goes to the credit card processing company, right? Whoever is providing them the processing. And they'll take on the responsibility of that, and they take on the risk and whatnot. We actually went through the wonderful process of becoming PCI compliant ourselves. That means we have our own gateway. That means we have PCI compliance and PCI compliance servers. That means that we put in all the key injection and all the different bits and pieces that you need in order to truly be a safe processing platform. So you mentioned EMV and where everything is going. So we know that October 2015 is the cutoff point for retailers. What generally speaking happens is that the liability shifts from the acquirer or the processor over to the retailer. And when that time comes around, if a retailer accepts a card other than EMV, then the liability is on them if they receive a chargeback, whereas with chip and pin, EMV, the liability falls back onto the bank and the acquirer. So obviously every merchant is incentivized to become EMV compliant, but there's a huge hurdle, especially if they have a point of sale, right? So that means that as a point of sale company, you have to not only integrate with the new hardware, which accepts the chip and pin, but you have to make sure that your gateway is compliant with that, which a lot of gateways still are not, and literally going to the last minute. And aside from that, are you taking all the right protocols to be EMV compliant? So the hardware, the gateway, and then actually being authorized for that. Generally speaking, it's a 2-month to 6-month process for every single piece of hardware. So if you want to integrate with 3 different hardware pieces, those are separate authorizations. If you want to go through 2 different gateways, you better as heck hope that they're EMV compliant. If you want to go with different acquiring banks, then you have to integrate with each of them individually. And obviously that turns into a huge burden on technology companies. And obviously it's going to be something that changes the landscape very quickly.
Yes. And one more question, just as far as the security benefit to being on these mobile devices, iPad or Apple devices, is the whole point of sale malware and all the breaches that have come out of it, is that one of the benefits? You wouldn't have to worry about that at least now on these devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, with technology continuing to grow and companies like Bindo that are staying at the forefront of technology, that means that we're using new tech for the purposes of preventing fraud, of preventing break-ins, of preventing, any kind of malware actually going into the system. So even for us, if one of my core developers tried hacking into our own system and accessing credit card information, they wouldn't be able to, right? That's something that every company has to take into consideration, especially moving forwards.
Got it. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, you just heard from David Bozin. He's over at Bindo. Make sure you tune in next time at scmagazine.com.